Hello my dear students, welcoming you all back to our English class, that is English for class 10. Today we will be dealing with a topic from the poetry, that is The Listeners by Walter de la Mare. The Listeners by Walter de la Mare. We have that in page number 93 to page number 100. The poem is just a short poem, but we have a lot of topics related to that. That's why it has occupied 7 pages, okay? Page number 93 to page number 100, we will do a short study about the poet, okay? The poet is Walter de la Mare. So, this poet is mostly well known for his writings for children. There are different types of writers, there are different types of poets. There are some poets who usually deals with the topic of nature. We have been discussing about that. There are some poets who deals with the environment. But here, the poet that we are going to do with now will be writing mostly for children. That means he will write books and poems. He did not write only poems. I want you to keep that in mind. But he wrote books and stories for children, and he is best known for that. He also got awards, and it is also said that he had been receiving pension from the government for writing, so that he can write for the nation as well as write for the benefit of the country. That was what he had been doing, and mostly well known among the other type of writing is he also writes ghost stories. We all have read of horror movies or watched horror movies, right? And so this is also one topic that interests him, and out of his write-ups, one of the most well-known is also The Listeners. He wrote a book called The Listeners, though we are doing with only the poem here, where this poem that we will be doing with was also a part of that book called The Listeners, with the title The Listeners again. Don't get confused here. He wrote a book titled The Listeners, and this poem, The Listeners, is a part of that book, and that was one work which made him so popular, and we are reading one of his best well-known write-up. Keep that in mind. And while going through the poem, you will also see that some words are written in bold, okay, emboldened. We will read the meanings of those. Those are called the footnotes, okay? The meanings are given at the end of the page. You can refer to your book, that is in page number 94 and 95. For today, I will not be reading the book again for all of us, because by class 10, I don't expect to be doing everything for you, and you also cannot expect that from me, right? So I would like you to get hold of your book and then start with the footnotes right now. Some of the footnotes that I'm going to be explaining today will be these words, jammed, okay? Jammed is the past tense of the word jam. That means beat or to chew on somebody on something noisily. You know, when animals chew their food, we can hear some sounds made from their mouth, isn't it? So that is called jammed. We are going to discuss about an animal which I'm not going to name it now, but you will later see that that animal was jumping on the grasses, okay? And turret is a kind of tower that comes out from the wall, okay? So this turret, you will also come across a turret where a bird will fly out. There is a tower-like thing on the wall where animals can get in. There is a small room for that. Those are called the turret, and you will also come across the word smote, okay? Smote is the past tense of the word smite, and smote here means knocked. You will also see somebody knocking on the door. So these are some words that you might find it difficult. So I'm explaining for the easy understanding for all of us. And the next word that you will come across will be perplexed. Perplexed here means confused. You will also find that somebody in the poem will be confused. And then searched. Search means to move forward in an advancing manner. That means moving away very quickly. You can take the example of a wave, right? A wave doesn't come slowly, but it just comes all of a sudden and vanishes. And so this word search means to move in an advancing manner, okay? And the next one will be hearkening. Hearkening means listening attentively. Listening to something attentively. Sometimes even when people talk around you, you feel like you cannot hear them, or it's because you do not give your full attention to that listening. But hearkening means to listen attentively. Sometimes we listen but not attentively, but the word hearkening just does not mean listening, but to listen to something attentively. And the next one will be thronging. Thronging here would mean crowded. Okay, sometimes we see the marketplaces being thronged, right? There's so many people who will go to a particular shop, maybe because that person sells some kind of interesting objects or some useful items. And so here the word thronging means to be crowded. These are the footnotes that you will find it in your text. Keep this in your mind while going through, because these words will be difficult, as these are not normal words that we use it daily in our conversation. Okay, now we will discuss about the poem. Okay, by now you might have had a little idea, because in your book you also have a picture in page number 93. Just by looking at the picture in the book, I'm sure you will get to know what type of poem this is going to be. We will see that a strange man or a traveler is coming into the middle of the forest at night. You can imagine, on a dark night when there is nobody, he was just coming all alone from his horseback. And he was coming here not because he wanted to spend some time in the jungle. He was coming because he had something to be done. He had a work. Okay, we also have promises which needs to be done, isn't it? We make promises, and promises are made so that we can fulfill it. So I'm sure the poet here, or the narrator here, the traveler here, was also coming to fulfill a promise that he had given long back. We will see that a man came to a lonely house. You can imagine the picture that you see. You can relate to it, right? Even though I do not have to show you the picture again, it's already there in the book. So I would like you to look at that and imagine that the house in the picture was the house that the poet was describing about. It appears a little ghostly, right? And so he was standing at the door, and he knocked on the door to see if anyone is there inside. He kept knocking, but in the first knock he saw nothing. He felt as if there was nobody inside, but probably the house has not been locked. Okay, so he kept knocking. If you see that the door is locked, you will not be knocking at the door, because you are sure that the inmates have gone out or there is nobody inside. But this man, this traveler, was knocking the door because he feels that there is somebody inside, and the door was not locked from outside. He knocked, but instead of hearing anybody responding, or instead of somebody coming to open the door for him, he saw that a bird flew out of the turret. We have discussed about the word turret, right? I said there is a small room-like thing on the wall, and so this bird flew out. You can just imagine here, if you have gone to a place where it was so deserted, there is only one house, you knock the door, you hear no sounds except the birds flying around. You can even imagine of a bed, right? So if that is your case, I'm sure you will not find it a pleasant event. So this poet, this narrator, saw that a bird just flew out, but there was nobody to come and open the door. He was getting a little impatient, okay? So he knocked on the door louder the second time, expecting that someone would come out. And when he knocked at this, there was no one, but he could see that there were some people inside, a host of phantom images. That is a word, that is a phrase that you will come across while reading the poem, right? So he saw some phantom figures. That means not very clear to him. It's already night, okay? It's already dark. So might be because of the darkness, he could not see everyone clearly, but he could see that there were a group of people inside, but they did not even make a single movement, though they heard him. Obviously they have heard him knocking the door, okay? He knocked the door the second time, but he could not hear anything, but there were some people hearkening, okay, listening attentively to his call. Is there anybody in? That's what he was saying, and he was requesting them to come forward and open the door. But this group of listeners did not even make a move. They were just staring at his gray eyes, okay? They were just staring at him without making any movement. And this gave him a perplexed feeling. He was confused. He got so confused because these people, though they seemed to be listening to him, did not make any slight movement. Instead, if they were real human beings, he would have heard them discussing among themselves. But he did not even see this kind of reaction from this group of listeners. The only voice, the only sound that he could hear was his horse that jumped noisily on the ferny floor. You know ferns, right? Ferns are a type of grass. And so he could only hear the horse jumping, the horse munching on the ferny floors. He kept his horse a little away because obviously a person will not take a horse into a house. So that was why he kept the horse away from him, so that he will enter the house. But he could not hear any other thing except the munching of the grass by the horse. So this gave him a more perplexed feeling. He could not understand what was going on inside. He really could not understand, so he kept listening. He did not leave all of a sudden. The third time he knocked even louder, okay? He was getting impatient. The same feeling can be expressed by us. The day you go to a friend's house, maybe that friend was sleeping. If you feel that he's still inside but he does not open, what do? You will go and knock the doors and the windows, right? In order to wake somebody up. So this traveler was also knocking on the door the third time even louder, because the first two knocks did not work. The first two knocks were given, but he could only see those images, those phantom images. He could not see them clearly, but he knew that there were some people inside. He was still waiting eagerly for them to come down and open the door, okay? But they did not make any movement. So the third time he knocked even louder. He was waiting, but he found an eerie atmosphere, okay? A strange atmosphere where he could not understand. Now he is beginning to get confused on whether these people, the inmates of this house, are really human beings or not. So he began to have a sense of confusion in his mind. So what he said was, he decided to leave now, because even though he kept knocking, there was not even a slight movement. See, whether you like somebody or not, what we usually do is, if we hear somebody ringing the bell or knocking at our door, obviously we will go open the door and ask what the matter was, right? Even if you do not welcome them. But this group of listeners did not say anything like that. They did not do any such thing, which was making him impatient as well as confused. So he knocked the third time. Now he had made his mind to leave the place. He made his mind to leave the place, and here what he did was he gave them a message, okay? He gave them a message. Tell them that I kept my word. I came but nobody responded. That was the message that he had given. This shows, we do not know the background of the poem here, but this shows that he had made a promise some months back, some years back, we never know. But the inmates might have been dead, or they might have moved to other place. That was the reason why he came. He came to fulfill a promise that was made some years back. And so he just told them the second time that he came to fulfill the promise that he gave. We do not know. He might have taken some money from them, or he might have some debt towards them. That was the reason why he came back, to find that there was nobody in the house to respond to him back. And so finding this, he also realized that there is something strange about this house. So he decided not to stay any longer. He just passed on the message that he had kept his word. He came, but nobody answered him. That was the reason why he was leaving. And as this man was ready to move on, he went on to his horse, and then they moved away. But there was nothing that could be heard even after he had moved. He could only hear the sounds of the hoofs of the horse, right? As the horse keeps moving, we will always hear the footsteps, isn't it? So that was the only sound that he could hear. For a normal person living in the house, if somebody is moving away like this, what we will do is we will even at least look out and ask what the matter was. But they did not make any movement. This was really strange for the narrator, for the traveler to be experiencing. And the horse just moved, it surged, okay? It did not moved slowly, but it surged away into the forest, because this is just in the middle of the forest, and even to reach his house or wherever he stays, I am sure it will take some more time. And in the whole of the forest, the only sound that could be heard was the movement of the horse. The galloping horse footsteps could only be heard, and there was no other thing except the shrill silence. You know, shrill, right? The sharp silence. When everything becomes so silent, what do you feel? You feel a little strange. Sometimes you don't feel very comfortable. You begin to imagine a lot of things. If you are left all alone in a big house, forget about the forest right now, but if you are left all alone in a big house without anyone, there is real silence that you begin to feel strange, you feel scared, isn't it? So this traveler might also be facing the same thing. He decided to go away because he felt that there is something more than human beings in the house, or else he could have just keep the thing, or whatever he is obliged to do, he would have done that and have gone away if he knew that they were human beings. But he got something strange. That is the reason why he left away. What we want to know is, we are also going to discuss about the theme, okay? Here the themes could mean different things, but what the poet really wants us to understand here is, there is a world of mystery. You know what is mystery? A thing that is difficult for you and for me to understand. The poet presents the mysterious world to us. He also tries to make us understand that there is a world which is parallel to the human world. We think that human beings are the only ones who are important in this world, but he is also trying to parallelly, okay, in an equal level, present the presence of ghosts and the supernatural creatures around us, which we do not feel unless we pay attention. Sometimes we ignore this supernatural world, imagining and trying to live in our own logistic way. But this might be wrong. According to what the poet says, this might be a wrong view, because the poet gives us the idea that there were some creatures which are not of the natural world, or even if we do not know, he is trying to make us feel that there is something mysterious about these inmates who were living in this house. This also means that he wants to convey the strength or the power of the supernatural beings in the world in which we live in, though we do not notice it. So we have to acknowledge, we have to admit and accept that there is also a supernatural activity or supernatural world going around us, which we do not feel because we have become too logistic in our own way. That is one of the main themes that the poet is trying to make us understand. Though he did not present it very clearly, we can understand that he wants us to acknowledge the presence of mysteries and supernatural power around us, even in our daily livings. Sometimes we don't accept them. The traveler at first did not accept that this will be a group of supernatural beings or a group of ghosts. But later on, he also accepts and admits that they are not human beings, so he had to leave the place, or else he would have taken some other action. So this shows that there is an equally parallel world to our world, which we should also acknowledge. This is what the poem talks about, and so the importance was given not only to the traveler but to the listeners, and so that is the reason why the title of our poem is taken as The Listeners. This is what we have discussed about. There are so many questions that follows in the following pages. That means you will find it in page number 95 till 100. There are some exercises for you to be done. Please make sure that you complete those things, and anytime you get back to school, this will be your homework, which you have to submit it to your respective school teachers. And with this, we are going to end our class for today. Thank you all so much for listening.